Hello my beautiful friends, my name is Alexandria and I am coming to you after work. It is a beautiful night again and I wanted to sit down and film my February wrap-up for y'all. So let's just go ahead and get into it and not ramble at all because I don't really have anything else to say and I want to go to bed. So if you would like to see all of the books that I read in February 2021, then just keep on watching. Alright, so before I get into this video, I did want to give a shout out to an amazing brand that reached out to me. Basically, they reached out and asked me if I would share their amazing creations on my YouTube channel, and I was super excited to do so. If you have seen my last vlog video, I think, or the one before that, I did share it in that video, but I wanted to give it a shout out in this video as well. These are from the seasonal pages, and these are the most beautiful, amazing bookmarks, which has kind of come in perfect timing because I have been reading more physical books, so I didn't have to dog ear any of the pages of my new books, and it just made me really happy inside. My favorite two are the one of this beautiful feller. I want his outfit so badly. And this one is my all-time favorite. I've been using this in all my books whenever I'm reading, so just wanted to give a little shout out. I'll have the link to this website down below where you can check them out. And yeah, they're just absolutely beautiful. They have a bunch of amazing stuff on their website, and yeah, just wanted to share that. Getting into my wrap up for February 2021, Black History Month. So this month was a short month, but it was a month that I packed in quite a bit of reading to. My TBR list for this month was pretty long, pretty daunting, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to accomplish it. And I am proud to say that for the most part, I did accomplish it. So let's just give me a round of applause because it's so important to celebrate ourselves. I was participating in the Blackathon and also the Black Lit Reading Challenge. I believe I won the Black Lit Reading Challenge. Basically, you counted points towards reading books from authors from different countries, and then also you could get bonus points for if they were like LGBT or if it was a disabled author, and a couple of other things that I cannot remember right now, but I'm pretty sure that I won. So as far as Blackathon, I decided to tackle two teams. So I did the SFF team and I actually won that, so yay for me, so excited. But the contemporary nonfiction team, I did not end up winning that solely because I was not able to read the group book, but I read all of the other books that I had on that list, so I'm still really proud of myself. And I was supposed to participate in the Buzzwordathon last month, didn't end up doing that because my mood just didn't fit the book that I picked for the month, and so yeah, not too big of a deal. So let's just go ahead and get into all of the books that I read. So I had 4 5-star books this month. That's wild. 4 5-star books. I had 1 4-star and I had 3 3-star books. So all in all, I think it was a pretty good reading month and I'm very happy with all the books that I read. All right, so to start out this month, I started with an autobiography and it was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. I was so excited to finally be reading this world-renowned author, and I was not disappointed whatsoever. The way that the autobiography is set up is that it's in a series, so this was just a portion of her life, and let me just say that it was like a little bite, and it left me definitely wanting more. One of the main things that I love about autobiographies, and I did read another autobiography this month that was very different, but I love being able to see the events in people's lives that make up who they are as a person. I did not realize how much that Maya Angelou had been through in her life. It was really heavy, but it was such a beautifully written book that it was easy to get through to a certain extent. I love the way that the story was told because it felt real. The way that she told the story also felt very much like a novel in a way as well. And so I think that was a big reason why it held my attention too, because sometimes there's some autobiographies that are just like a little like cut and dry and not, I don't know, not nearly as like lyrical and beautiful as this was. And yeah, I'm just really excited to read more by her, and I'm really excited to get the physical copy of the book hopefully soon, because it's definitely something that I'm going to reread again and share with others as well. The next book was a book that I was really excited about, and I have it right here. It is Kindred by Octavia Butler. Oh my God. I've talked about this book in so many different videos. This was definitely on my list of highly anticipated books that I wanted to read in 2021. I knew that I would love Octavia E. Butler. 5 out of 5, knew it, called it, and I ate this book up. I literally finished it in one day. I could not put it down. This is about a 26-year-old woman who is living in California, and she ends up suddenly being transported to the antebellum South. Basically, whenever this little white boy there is in need of help, is in danger, she gets pulled back into the past and basically ends up saving him. And this continually keeps happening throughout his life because he's a very reckless little asshole. I'm a little boy. And so yeah, it keeps happening. The tension that built throughout this book, every time she would go back, was just so palatable and so like intense, like super intense. Wow, it just, I thought I knew what it was going into it, but I didn't know. Like, who knew that historical fiction, sci-fi would be a thing that would be successful? It is. She did that. She was successful, and I just bought another one of her books because I am going to be reading at least one of her books every month. One of the things that I do want to say about this book is that it is very heavy. It's very heavy, it's very real, it's very raw when it comes to describing the atrocities of slavery. And also, it wasn't even about that, because every time she would go back in time, she would basically be stuck there for a longer and longer period of time. And so you were really sitting there wondering, like, is she gonna end up stuck there forever? Obviously, she was a modern woman. She was living in a time where she felt comfortable in her skin and comfortable as a Black woman living in this world. And wow, race car drivers. Going back to a time where she was hit with all of these experiences and situations that were really testing her strength and her willpower and her overall, just like, not only her strength in herself, but her strength from her ancestors as well, was something that I was feeling too. The way that we can adapt to certain situations in our lives, whether we think that we would act a certain way or not, doesn't really matter, because we don't know how we would act in that situation if we were actually in it. And I think that was something that the main character was dealing with a lot and trying to figure out. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away because everything is so valuable in this book, and I think that everyone needs to read it. Just be prepared, look up the content warnings and everything. But I do think this is a really important story, especially if you like science fiction. Honestly, this could have been a whole series. That's why I'm really excited to read the other books that I am going to be reading from Octavia E. Butler, because they are a series. And so yeah, I'm ready. My body is ready for it. So the next book that I read was Binti by nnendi, akorafor, and this was something that was very hyped. I've had this on my list for I don't know how long, and I've heard so many people saying really good things about it, and so I was really excited to read it. It is a novella. It's under 100 pages, and so it was perfect to fit in for one of the prompts for the Blackathon. So basically this is following a 16-year-old girl named Binti, and she is living on a planet that is very similar to Earth. With her family. When we jump into her story, she is leaving her family and traveling to this big, great city to go to this really prestigious school. And so basically this story is following her journey to the school and all of the shit that goes down in that whole process. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it for what it was. But I think that I just personally don't really like novellas because they're just not enough for me. There wasn't enough world building, there wasn't enough character development, there just wasn't enough for me. What I did get was really good. What I did get, I thoroughly enjoyed. I am interested to read the rest of the Binti books. And I'm also excited to read more by Nnedi Akorafor, so this was like a good kind of like teaser of the author's writing style. So I do appreciate it for that, but I just wanted more. Like, what I did see from the world was really, really interesting, and the experiences that she was having, traditions and practices that she would talk about her village previously doing and how important they were to her. Those were things that really stuck with me from that. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely something that I would suggest for other people to read, but I don't think that it's gonna be something that everyone's gonna fully vibe with. But if you want something super short that's like science fiction type shit with black girl magic, then that'll definitely be for you. I definitely enjoyed that aspect of it. The next book that I read was Hoodoo by Ronald L. Smith. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. This is a middle grade book following the 12-year-old boy named Hoodoo. He is living with his family in a small town, and basically his entire family is very educated and skilled in the art of hoodoo, which is a folk magic. And unfortunately, hoodoo does not have any of these skills and is not showing any signs of, you know, having any magic. And so this story is basically following him and his experiences. It's very much just focused on like his internal dialogue. There is a stranger that comes to town that hoodoo just doesn't feel right about. And so that kind of spurs a ripple of events that start happening, and that's really how the story starts rolling. It's over the span of like a couple of days, and it's very fast paced. As far as the story goes, I read it like in one night, I think. And I did really enjoy it for what it was. Like I said, it was a middle grade novel, so it definitely was not for my demographic. But I feel like someone like my nephew, who is around the same age, would enjoy it. And I feel like the subject of hoodoo isn't something that is talked about a lot in general, but specifically with this age group. And so I think it's kind of a good introduction to that. It was a little spooky, it was a little scary at times, even for me, but I am a wuss, so I don't know if that says very much. I did enjoy it, but like I said, it just kind of wasn't for my age group. But yeah, I'm glad that I read it. So the next book that I read was Patsy by Nicole, dennis-benn, and this book is basically following the story of Patsy, who is from Jamaica, and it starts out with her living there and basically wanting to try to get a visa to the United States. She has had this relationship with this woman named Cicely, who lives in the United States, who had previously lived in Jamaica, and they were really close friends and had this really strong bond and are basically in love. Point blank period. And so yeah, she wants to move to the United States to be with her. Patsy also has a daughter, and so that definitely plays a huge role in her deciding to go to the United States. So yeah, that's basically where it sets up. She ends up going to the United States. It's very much focused on her experience being an immigrant and being a woman in this country, and also focusing on her relationship with Cicely and how that may have shifted and changed because they haven't seen each other in a really long time. And just like not only relearning who her really close friend is now that she is reunited with her, but also learning who she is as a person in this new world. It was also a really interesting perspective of exploring your sexuality, coming into yourself as a person and your spirituality. So I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. When I was about halfway through it, I was seriously considering DNFing it. I don't like DNFing books. I do it very rarely, especially if I'm that far through a book. Most of the time I'll just finish it. But I was considering doing so because I just wasn't getting what I wanted from the book, and there were some triggering topics. This, and also I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, has sexual assault in it. specifically regarding a child, and so there are definitely trigger warnings for that, among other things. It was definitely a challenging read at times, and I kind of had to like force myself to continue. One of the things that really kept me going throughout this book was hearing about her daughter's experiences, because it started being less focused on kind of Patsy's experiences and started kind of being a dual perspective of her life and also her daughter's life, who she was still living back in Jamaica with her father. And so I thought that was really interesting, and how the story ultimately ended up shifting. It was definitely still focused on Patsy and her experiences, but it felt like it shifted a little bit more to a mother-daughter story and a mother-daughter relationship. And so yeah, it's definitely a book that I would suggest reading. I kind of subconsciously was comparing it a little bit to Behold the Dreamers, because that was a story that was focused on a family immigrating from Cameroon to the United States. This story was definitely different, but I was like subconsciously comparing them because it felt similar, kind of. But I definitely enjoyed Behold the Dreamers a little bit more, just like the writing style I enjoyed more. But I would like to read the other book by this author that I have on my list, which is Here Comes the Sun, because I would like to see if I just vibe with that a little bit better. Let's move on to one of my favorites of this month. One of my 5-star reads this month was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. I was so excited to have this, and it actually took me longer to read this than I thought that it was going to, but once I got into it and once I kept continuously picking it up, I think I was just overwhelmed and like daunted by all of the world building and all of the like intricacies of this book. And so that's why I was kind of, I don't know, intimidated by picking it up sometimes. And also I think I have this thing where like I don't want to pick up a book if I know that I'm gonna like it. But basically this is following a young boy named Malik, and he is going to a city with his siblings to basically have a new life. And when they end up arriving there, his sister ends up being held captive by this entity. So basically the entity decides to make a negotiation with Malik that he will let his little sister go in exchange for him killing the princess of this city. And so that's basically the premise. He has to go and kill this princess. It's also during this time where this huge like celebration is going on that they have every like 10 years or something like that. And then also there are these trials that are going on as well. So there's a lot happening in this book. There's a lot of world building. There's a lot of character building as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed every inch of it. I was very much intimidated by the book because there was so much in it, and I just felt like my brain wasn't in the right place to like absorb all of the material. It like took me a while to like absorb all of it. I had to keep going back and like reading sentences over again, but I am so excited about this series. It's honestly probably gonna be one of my favorite series. This is dual perspective. This is from the perspective of Malik and also Karina the princess. And it was really interesting hearing about both of their perspectives. I was kind of subconsciously comparing it to Child of Blood and Bone. Children of, is that what it's called? Children of Blood and Bone. And so I was kind of comparing the princess from that story to the princess in this story, but they were nothing alike. I loved Karina so much more, and I loved how much depth that she had. Something that's really interesting that's interweaved throughout the story that isn't something that I have read a lot in like a fantasy YA book is the way that mental illness is kind of interwoven throughout the story. I don't know if that's really a spoiler. I'm not going to get really super specific about it, but mental illness and also a physical kind of chronic illness as well is something that's talked about quite frequently. And so I guess that can be triggering, but I think that it's also an important conversation and something that I feel like I said, isn't talked about as much. I've never seen it in a story like this before. Being that I am a person that has dealt with chronic pain and mental health concerns and stuff, it was really nice to see that representation, and I know that I would have valued it a lot being able to see it when I was growing it up, because I value it so much right now. So I really appreciate this book a lot. Wow, it was absolutely amazing. Definitely did not let me down. All right, so the next book that I wanted to share with you guys is one that I'm super excited about. This was another 5-star read for me this month, and it is the autobiography of Malcolm X. Oh, look at my man. So before I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, I really didn't know very much about him. Just heard what I heard through the grapevine, that he was basically a very polarizing person, that he was supposed to be very different from Martin Luther King Jr., and his approach was a lot more aggressive. While none of that is necessarily untrue, there is so much more to this man than I probably ever could have imagined. So I actually listened to this on audiobook, and I would highly suggest that everyone listen to the audiobook, because it was narrated by Lawrence Fishburne, and holy shit, that man, he is fucking amazing. The book was already amazing as it was, but he brought it to another level, and I don't think I would have had nearly the same experience if I hadn't listened to the audiobook. And I actually connected with him on a lot of different things, on a lot of different levels, just because of, not necessarily that we've had like the same or even similar experiences, but just the transformational life events that he just kept going through, and the fact that his thought process like just would change over and over, and the fact that he was open to his thought processing change and wasn't like completely against it most of the time. It was really interesting to learn about him being so a part of the Church of Islam. I didn't realize, like I had heard from other people that that was something that he was a part of, but I didn't realize to what level that actually was. So it was really interesting hearing about his transition from the way that they kind of worshipped and the things that they taught about in the US to going to the actual country where the religion was actually from, and learning about the source and his perspective, and how his perspective changed from that experience. And something that was really interesting as well was towards the end of the book, he was talking about how he knew that he was going to most likely die in a very brutal way. Honestly gave me chills to like hear him talking about that, because it's almost like it was prophetic in a way. There were so many conversations about things that are conversations that are being had more so now, and so many things that I felt like he believed in that are like parallel to a lot of things that people are realizing and awakening to right now. Of course, him telling people about his own life is going to be somewhat biased to a certain extent, but you gotta take from it what you will, you know? There were a lot of things that made me think, there were a lot of things that made me angry. There was one chapter that was particularly on the longer side. I think it was like an hour and 45 minutes long or something. And during that chapter, it dragged a little bit for me, because it was less about like his story and his experience, and it was more, I don't know, it felt a little bit more informational. I got a little bit bored at that point, but Lawrence Fishburne just pulled me back in with his voice. It was a wonderful book, and I'm so glad to have the physical copy so I can underline some things and also share it with other people. And like I said, I do think that this is something that needs to be shared, and everyone needs to read it because it's an important discussion. I stan. I am truly a stan. So the last book that I read was the group book for the Team SFF for the Blackathon, and that was The Lesson by Caldwell Turnbull. And so basically this is about a like first touch alien, I wouldn't say invasion, but like alien arrival. So it's following essentially like their family, but it's like a family and then some friends associated with that family. The story was really short. It was about like 200 something pages. The aliens are called Ina, or at least that's how I pronounced it in my head. And they are a really interesting race of aliens, or interpretation of aliens, because they're very similar to human beings. and they look like black people, but there's just something off about them. They're like a little bit too stiff, a little bit too fast. And yeah, so they end up landing on the US Virgin Islands. It kind of starts out sharing where they are at in their lives, their hopes and dreams, and the things that they're wanting to do with their lives, and then the aftermath of these aliens coming to the planet and how that affected their entire life. It was an interesting story. There were parts of it that I did enjoy. I actually enjoyed, we did get one perspective of one of the Ina. I thought that their perspective was actually really interesting, and I would have actually loved reading a whole book about that character. So basically it shows right before the Ina arrive, and then it shows about like 4 years after or so. So it was also kind of a reflection on colonialism, and it was really interesting how the Ina started acting very similarly to humans, and the humans started actually acting very similarly to the Ina. One of the things that was said a few times was that the Ina came from a place where they had to defend themselves very aggressively, and so their first reaction whenever they are provoked or attacked or anything like that would be to respond with a similar or a stronger form of aggression. I enjoyed it for what it was. I would be interested in maybe reading another book by this author. This was a debut novel, so it definitely felt like that. So yeah, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the best thing that I've ever read in the world, and I probably wouldn't read it again, to be honest. So I feel like this month was a really good reading month for me. 4 5-star books, and the other books were definitely not ones that I absolutely hated, so that's always a good thing. And yeah, I'm very proud of myself for all of the books that I was able to finish, and winning the Team SFF challenge for the Blackathon made me really proud of myself. I need to go to bed, I need to take my makeup off, and I need to go to sleep. So yes, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Definitely let me know what you all have read over the last month. If you read any good books by Black authors, definitely let me know down below. I am always adding more and more books to my list. And so yeah, I hope you are having a beautiful day wherever you're at. I hope you're finding joy wherever it is that you can, and staying safe. I love you.